Hello everyone, this is Egdar from the DBDLeague team. I'm very happy to present to you the Checkspot guide video, which has been very eagerly anticipated and requested. In this video, we're going to show you how to use Checkspots, how to use them to outplay the killer, waste their time, and make every loop last as long as possible. We'll break down the spots, the timings, and the mind games so you can turn those close calls into clean escapes. Of course, one person wouldn't have made this entire project possible, so first of all, we want to give thanks to the players who generously donated their time to help first explain the Checkspots and then get them to us on video. That would be Pxpx, Exize, and Opkafance. Of course, thank you to our wonderful producer, Savanna, and our editor, Torsolman. The first thing you want to do before committing to going around the shack is to first just hold the door. Make sure the killer is actually following you through there. If they are, then you can next move to this corner. From this corner, you can see through the door, as well as the boarded up window to see if the killer has doubled back through shack. From there, the exact opposite corner of shack is another amazing spot to hold. It gives you vision onto both corners the killer may come from, as well as vision through the vaultable window and the door. For general tip number 1, remember to always watch both sides of the check spot. Do not focus on just one side because the killer can show up from either direction. The last spot is going to be inside shack itself, pressed up against this locker. With good camera placement, you can see the killer approaching either the door, the pallet, or the window. As a last general tip at shack, make sure to be looking through the boarded up windows as you traverse from corner to corner. These will offer great vision into the shack itself. The second general tip, and this might sound obvious to some, remember to always hug textures tightly to be as efficient as possible with your movement, and try and practice looking behind you as much as possible to see where the killer is at all times. Moving on to the 4-lane jungle gym, honestly there's only really one spot you need to know, and that is right here, at the end of the wall next to the pallet and the window. You can adjust which side your model stands on, but your camera should be able to see into both lanes, as well as through the window. This gives you options depending on where the killer commits. If they commit through the pallet lane, you can just run to the window for an easy fast vault. And if they run through the window lane, you can just run yourself around to the pallet. TNL walls aren't particularly safe tiles, even against M1 killers, but there are still things you can do to make the most out of them and buy as much time as possible. On the T-wall, you can hold both corners of the outside section of wall, giving you vision onto both sides around the wall the killer may approach from. Wrapping around to the outside over to the L wall, you can hold this corner of the wall right next to the window, giving you vision onto both sides of the wall and through the window. This is better than hugging the corner just around the window, as this spot doesn't let you properly track the killer through the window. When you're forced to play inside the loop, your best bet is to hold either the base of the T-wall, giving vision onto both sides of the wall, or the inside corner of the L wall, which like earlier gives you vision through the window as well as both sides of the wall. Moving on to Ormond tiles, and we'll be completely honest, the pallet here and the tile as a whole is not particularly safe. If you're out of options and you're forced to play around the undropped pallet, try and hug the tile as best as you can, and check over the boxes to see the killer if they're tall enough, and you can try and get a pallet stun, but as we said, the pallet by itself isn't fantastic. The tile does get a bit easier, but still not great with the pallet pre-dropped. You can hold the end of the wall just by this locker here, which allows you to see if the killer is coming through the tile, coming from the outside of the tile, which will give you a good path to the window, or even breaks the pallet, which is your signal to get some distance. At the wall, with the window, the corners of the wall are your best bet, mostly for their ability to give you sight through the window and at the opposite corner of the wall. Often, chases at this tile can come down to 50-50, so don't be disheartened if it takes some practice to utilise this tile effectively. Now on to the so-called Godrocks, and despite the name, these rocks can be somewhat difficult to play around as a beginner. These are more about positioning. Try and keep as much distance from the killer as possible, and run the loop as tightly as you can, preferably on the longer side of the rock where you have more time to react to a killer committing on one side. If in doubt, don't be afraid to drop the pallet early and try and force the killer to go for a break. Now we look at pallet gyms, and the best advice is to play around these pallets where dropped whenever possible. This tile isn't very safe when the pallet is up. The killer can easily cut you off and mind game you just by playing inside of the upright pallet. However, when the pallet is dropped, the killer can't cut you off so easily, at which point the tile becomes fairly safe by playing at either the edge of the tile on this corner and simply taking the pallet vault if the killer follows you around the tile. For the third general tip, we're going to be talking about patience. Just because you see the killer's red stain at the check spot on one side, that doesn't mean the killer can't double back the moment you start moving. Be patient and make sure the killer is actually committing in your direction before bolting off the other way. And for general tip number 4 is to pre-fire with the camera. To explain this in a bit more detail, oftentimes you'll end up arriving at the check spot with your camera first before the model of the survivor actually makes it to that spot. The earlier that you can get vision on the check spot, the earlier you're able to see the killer's position. As a separate but still important note, these tiles become even safer on the Azeroth's maps, as the tiles are much shorter and you can see exactly where the killer's going over the wall. Maybe not so good against your Sadakos, but pretty good against a large chunk of killer roster. Thank you so much for watching. We hope that this guide helps you in the future, be that in your regular matches or on the 1v1 ladder, which you can start playing by joining the DBDLeague Discord, which will be linked in the description. Please let us know what you thought about this guide and what future content you'd like to see from DBDLeague in the comments below. Goodbye for now.